Hey everyone, welcome to today's edition of One Single Story. It's Wednesday. We're in Hosea 10. I'm with Chris Rexroad and Alyssa Bream. And Hosea 10 begins by saying, "How prosperous Israel is, a luxuriant wine loaded with fruit. But the richer the people get, the more pagan altars they build, the more bountiful their harvest, the more beautiful their sacred pillars. The hearts of the people are fickle, they are guilty and must be punished. The Lord will break down their altars and smash their sacred pillars." So he begins by saying, you're blessed, but the more blessed you are, the more financially prosperous you are, the more wicked you become. There are multiple New Testament directives about the challenges of money. Jesus would say it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than a rich man to enter into the kingdom of heaven. And there's debate about what that means. I heard a recent talk about that. That's, some people say the eye of the needle is the place where the camel had to get down on all fours and, to go through. But I heard somebody saying recently that was just a bunch of malarkey. Yeah, that's just not true. Like Jesus was literally saying, this is a complicated thing. Mm-hmm. This is difficult. It's not, it's not a common thing. Yeah. It's an uncommon thing. He would say you can't love both God and money. There are challenges. So what I want to talk about today is and I should have, you put this word in here, but I think you understood when you saw the question, how does financial prosperity affect our spiritual life?
Depending on how you handle it from the beginning, if you keep your eyes on Christ and realize that it's a resource for you and then that you're a manager of it, you can do well with it. But if you allow it to become something where it's your success, it's your money, those things can start to sway what you do with that money. If you're using it for His kingdom work, if you're using it for the people around you and building things up, it can also, just destroy people too. We see people that win the lottery. What's the average statistic that win the lottery and they're bankrupt in 4 years or something like that? That you just start spending money on things that you shouldn't be spending money on, or you make poor decisions.
I'm sorry, I said about the lottery, and my mind went to The Office when the entire warehouse wins the lottery and they all quit.
They quit.
So now I gotta refocus, get out of the office.
Except for Daryl.
I thought that's what all of y'all always thought about was The Office.
It is. Yeah. Don't worry.
There's a lot of references.
I think the more money you get, the more self-reliant you think you are. I think that, to me, is the core, that as you have money, you think you can care for yourself. You think you don't need other people. You don't need God to provide because you have the money. You can do all these things that you need to do. We always want to stay like on the mountaintop spiritually, financially, all of that. But there's so much we learn in the valley when we don't have the money, when we are in need and we rely on Him. And then we wonder why when we're up here and we're happy and all of this and we're not relying on God, we're not doing the things that we learned in the valley, why we end up in the valley again. Mm-hmm. And so I think that self-reliance, that man, I have enough, I can just take care of myself. I don't need to be worrying about God and these things. I think that is where I would see how they just decided they didn't need God. They could do whatever kind of worship they wanted. And hey, this worship over here looked kind of cool. Well, you can get to have pretty statues where we can't make images of our God, so we get to make images of their God.
So I would say self-reliance would be a piece of it, I don't think it's intentional. Right. I don't think you set out intentionally. You just, when you're broke, you tend to pray more. You tend to seek more wise advice,
You're a lot more humble.
Right. Mm. And when you're not broke, it's like you don't I don't have to pray today, you know. And I don't think you think that way, but you know, it's like, okay, all of my problems are solved, at least financially. I would say that one of the other challenges of financial prosperity are the options that you suddenly have that you didn't have before, that can distract you from the spiritual things that you might want to do, have done. Now, it's not that I certainly, there's nobody more of a capitalist in this room than me. You know, I'm not opposed to people earning money, spending money, using money. I have zero problems with that. I want to cheer people on to be as prosperous as they possibly can be. But I also know that, let's say, for example, okay, you just don't have any extra money. Taking a trip on the weekends out of the question, you know, and having a boat to go out on is out of the question, you know, and having a house maybe at the beach or in the mountains or wherever, or traveling to another country is not an option. But when you experience financial prosperity, suddenly you have options that you didn't have before. Okay, I got a boat. And then Sunday comes, okay, it's the only, you know, we've had some crappy weather lately when we're recording this, unusually crappy weather for spring, you know, so the weekends, that's what I hear everybody saying. It's 80 all week long, and then, you know, 85, and then get the weekends at 69 and cloudy and rainy. But you know, you get to Sunday. Saturday was a mess. Sunday is sunny. You know, you got a boat. Should I go to church and, you know, grow spiritually, or should I go out on the boat? You know, and it's not to say, listen, because it's not to say that can't be the option sometimes. Okay, but when it's not an option, it's not an option. So we're going to church. When it is an option, suddenly it can take you away. You know, this stupid joke just came to my mind. Go ahead, because I don't need to tell it.
So that was one of the things that really surprised me when I got here, how much attendance dropped in the summer. I don't think I felt that. Like, people would go on vacation, but it wasn't, I don't know if it's just like the fact that everyone has a beach house an hour away, so it's really easy to go. I don't know, Chris, what your experience was. If you haven't experienced the summer here, but did attendance drop dramatically in the summer?
Not dramatic. What percent are we talking there? 25? 25%.
Not the percent person look that way.
Yeah.
No, 25%. It's not that much, huh?
About 25% really? in Indiana, the ones that we had been around, just because of vacations, various traveling, family stuff, and I grew up playing sports. I love sports, but I get so annoyed with how much sports have taken over the calendars of families' lives, and I won't. That's for another podcast. But that's a big one too. That'll take people away during the summer.
Our attendance is probably 10 to 15%. Even though I was surprised yesterday. Okay. Yesterday was kind of the first what I call post-school Sunday, even though school is still in for some of our people. But they can take a day trip to the beach, even if they don't have a beach house. You know, right. It's very accessible. You know, we got lots of water here, so you know you can go out on the boat, go fishing, go water skiing, whatever you want to do, and those things are all good. Okay, so I don't want to be that preacher who's like, hey, you should be in church. You know, everybody's going to hell because you're at the lake. You know, that kind of thing. I think that's ridiculous. But I also know that the more you have, the more options you have, you know. And then if you get multiple options, so you got a boat, you got a beach house, you got a house in the mountains, you know, you got the ability to go wherever you want to. So the question then becomes, what are we going to do this weekend? You know, when I was growing up, it was not a question what you were going to do this weekend. It was predetermined somewhere in the Bible that I was going to
Wednesday night was somehow predetermined.
That's right. And Sunday night. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It was predetermined, predestined. That was what predestination meant. Is I was predestined to go to church Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday night. But even now, and the thing is, so this isn't just about church. But the church is an easy pattern for you to relate to. But reading your Bible, journaling, prayer time, all of those things can get interrupted the more options you have.
Yeah.
When I was in a transition, I wasn't pastoring. I was attending church. Cameron at the time was racing four-wheelers all around the country. And we would be gone weeks at the time, on Sundays. It was before I started attending church here. And I remember, up until that time, I had been in church Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. And when I first started coming to church here, it was still Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. Okay. I remember how difficult it was to get back in the routine of regular church attendance because I was so far. Even, off the air, I'm pretty sure we didn't talk about this on a podcast. I didn't put my microphone on a recent Sunday, but I had been out of the building for 2 Sundays in a row, and that Sunday was different. And you say, well, you had been gone twice. Well, it doesn't take but just a couple of Sundays to be out of a routine, And I think the more options we have, the more opportunities we have to replace spiritual things with unspiritual things, not necessarily ungodly things, just unspiritual things that distract us away. Are there any other places that you can see how prosperity affects our spiritual life? One of the things that's going through my mind right now is one of the challenges of more is contentment and enough.
Yeah.
One of the tensions. And what I see most of the time, and it's a battle I have to fight, so let's not even just lay this at anybody else's feet. When is enough enough? All right. How big can I make this? How much can I make?
How big can the LED wall be?
Exactly. Yeah. And it's about as big as it can be.
Yes.
It could be shorter and wider, but not sure about that. That's still a conversation that could be had, right?
No matter what it is, whatever that next level is, sooner or later it becomes normal to you. It's not the next level.
That's right.
People just keep chasing that stuff.
And it's easy. And so what I know can happen, and I've seen happen in other people's lives, is that attempt to get more causes them to cut corners. Both morally, financially, relationally, and so there are lots of places where money can put pressure on us spiritually. And let's just say let's leave the options out of it. The more you have, the more you got to worry about. You got to think about, what am I going to do with it? What happens, if the stock market crashes, if the stock market crashes, most of us in this room, it may affect us, but it's not like we're not going to lose billions or millions of dollars, but if you got millions of dollars and the stock market crashes, it can significantly affect you. And so all of those things have an impact. Well, thank you for joining us today on One Single Story. We hope you'll be back tomorrow. We're going to continue our conversation in the book of Hosea.